Broadcasting from the campus of Linn-Benton Community College. We are the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE hub. I'm your host, Casey, and this is Closing the Gap. Welcome back, Closing the Gap listeners. Problem solving, critical thinking, reading design plans and schematics, and working with high levels of dexterity with your hands are all skills that make a person successful in a variety of fields. Though today we are specifically talking about welding. Joining me in the studio is Charity Bowers, a welding student at Linn-Benton Community College. Welcome, Charity.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So are you in the, I understand, I guess that there are like two kind of areas of study in the welding, studio or learning space, classroom. I'm not really sure what you call it over there, but fabrication and pipe fitting. Which one are you studying?
I'm studying pipe, and we're majority of the time in the shop.
Okay.
Yeah.
The shop is what we call it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. I was just over there, and that's kind of where I met you doing another project, and it is really impressive in there. It's huge, and there's like so many big moving parts and things I never saw before. Like, I think it was like a big saw thing.
Yeah.
Does that stuff ever scare you? Because I feel like I get a little freaked out sometimes by big machinery because it just seems, to me, unwieldy.
I mean, when you're first coming in, if you know nothing about it, it's kind of scary. But, like, once, like, the teachers here are really good at making you comfortable, and they explain everything. They'll go step by step. They'll come with you every single time if you need them to. So it's not very scary for me because I've been around it long enough, but at the very beginning it was a little bit nerve-wracking.
Right on. So are you, you said you were studying pipe fitting. So what does that mean exactly?
So kind of the basic is if you see like pipe runs along Costco. If you walk in Costco and look up, there's a bunch of pipes.
Okay.
That's kind of what we do. We like fit the pipes, make them fit together, and then we weld them so they don't break.
Cool. Are you in charge of all the cutting and stuff too?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's some jobs where it's just the fitting side, which is the cutting, the prep, making the bevel edge, all this. And then there's some jobs that's just the welding, which is just welding out. But then you go to like an actual shop setting and you're doing every single thing of that.
Right on. Very cool. So what is the difference, for those who don't know, what's the difference between pipe fitting and fabrication?
So fabrication is more structural or artsy. Like, I do a little bit of fabrication just on my own time. I'm not in the program, but it's kind of hard not to mix. But if you go for fabrication, it's more structural, like building things, like you cope I-beams and all that kind of stuff. And pipe is directly dealing with pipe. Like, you don't really get into the fabrication side of it unless you have a multi-use job.
Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like pipe is a little more specialized.
Yeah.
When I think of fabrication, I think of like those, like American Chopper, or like, things like that on the History Channel, which is, I mean, that seems even kind of specialized, I guess, for just doing fabrication. Yeah. But so how did you come to this field? Like, what inspired you?
Really my high school. Like, I went to a small Harrisburg High School, which I don't know if anyone knows where that is.
Oh, yeah. They actually just, their robotics team won state this year.
Oh, that's crazy. But I started welding in high school freshman year. I was like, well, I'll just take it. Like, it's cool. I know I don't want to do anything like biology or anything in college. I want to go for something hands-on. So I was like, let's give it a shot. And it just clicked with me. Like, I love the hands-on. I love doing it. And I was actually decent at it. So I kept practicing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to LB. They have one of the best welding programs around. Like, there are people that come from all over just to go to LB's welding program.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So, did you have any internships before you got here, or like did you get any industry experience before like taking the plunge into going to school, or was it just, this is cool, I'm gonna jump 2 feet into this now?
So since I just came out of high school, I was going high school full time, so I didn't have like experience, but I was like, this is cool. And plus, like, I have family friends that like work at Greenberry, which is a big pipe shop.
Oh, awesome.
If you didn't know. It's like, they're like, yeah, this is a good place to go. Like, you can make bank, like, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. Like, I set my mind to it, and I just did it.
That's great. I love the conviction. When I was your age, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I'm always, like, super stoked when I see someone that's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So you brought up making bank. So could you talk a little bit about what, like, an apprentice, is it apprentice when you, like, get out of school and then start a job?
You can go into apprenticeship, or you can just start. Like, you can go 2 routes.
Gotcha. What's someone that's new to the industry, what could they expect to make?
Straight out of college, you're probably going to be making, like, $21, $22 an hour straight out. If you're, like, experienced, if you came, like, some of the people in my class, they're, like, older, like 27, 30. They've had experience before this. They go out to make, like, $26 an hour. Or they'll go into a paid apprenticeship, which is they're still learning, so they're being paid less, but they're getting more out of it, which is probably, like, 23.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any of those wages sound pretty good to me. So what if someone, do you know how someone would decide if, like, they feel confident enough from getting right out of school to going into industry, or if they want to, like, do an apprenticeship? I apologize if this maybe is, like, a little, like, too, I don't know, too technical or something.
You're good.
But would you have any idea, like, just knowing your peers?
Coming right into college, I think people get scared. Like, it's a new world. I mean, I definitely was coming from such a small school. Just coming here, and our pipe instructor, like the head guy, his name's Mark Rose, and he is the most awesome guy ever. Like, you can talk to him, you'll text him, you can do anything, and he will respond and get you set up. Like, he'll be like, this program or this program. I mean, he fights for the pipe program because he's the head of pipe, but
right on. He
agrees that both programs are useful. And then to get into apprenticeship, it's also super easy. Like, they make everything super convenient. I believe it's Lena Gates, that's the head of apprentice program, and you just go talk to her and she can get you in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about how pipe was much more specialized and fabricating is like a little bit more broad in general and structural. And then you also had mentioned kind of while we were getting set up here in the studio that you do a little bit of both. What's your favorite part of welding, and are those skills, like, transferable? That's two way different questions. Let's start with, are those skills transferable?
So fabrication is much more, I don't want to offend anyone if they're listening to me because I will get ridiculed. Fabrication is more like, it's fabrication. Like, you can't really transfer over to pipe because you're welding round on pipe, and then you're practically welding flat pieces of metal together. I mean, there's a little bit, but they're not, I don't know how to say, multi-changeable, like interchangeable.
There you go, yeah.
But if you go into pipe, like, technically you can go into fab, like, because you can weld in all those positions. Like, 6G is a term we use as pipe students, and it's just a pipe angled at a 45 position, and you can't move it. You just have to weld it all around. And that qualifies you for every position, which you need that for fabrication. So you technically could get a fab job going through the pipe students. Like, but the risk you have is you have none of that fabrication knowledge. Like, they do a lot more than just welding. They have to do all the measurements and have different tools than us. But the fab students couldn't get a job in the pipe because unless they're like qualified in every single position
Mm-hmm.
and can weld on pipe, when we could go weld the fabrication, maybe just not have the knowledge of it.
Sure, yeah. It might be something more that would be easy to learn on the job, and
Yeah.
like employers would be willing you to pay for than having to learn a really hard skill of doing the 45-degree angles and
Yeah.
stuff. That makes sense. What's your favorite part of?
That's a tough one. I personally love the hands-on. I could not see myself sitting at a computer all day. I would go crazy. I mean, I love being hands-on. I love being in the shop. I love seeing all the people. And even when I'm having a really rough time welding, like, sometimes you just can't weld. And that's okay. But, like, all my peers come around and, like, hey, you're doing fine. Or they flick me shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
Oh, you did. It's okay.
Like, make fun of me and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, I can do better. It just pushes me.
Totally. Right on. Yeah. The camaraderie is really nice too. I really appreciate that, like with my coworkers, of just being able to, like, let's chat for 5 minutes about something that we're both interested in, or but I used to work in like culinary, so like a lot of standing up and running around, and I always thought like, oh, I couldn't do a desk job because I would get bored. And if you know that about yourself, like, listen, because sometimes these days sitting at the computer is rough, but I do like being creative, so there's a trade-off there. But yeah. So like, what's your favorite kind of thing to like make, or like if you were going to just like take on a project or like start something for yourself, like what kind of welding things are you doing?
If I'm doing something in the pipe class, I like making branches, and it's just practically a pipe sitting on another pipe at a certain angle. So I have to coat metal at, and it gets me better practice. If I'm talking like what I do for fun, I make custom signs. So I design them. I cut them out on the CNC plasma table. Like,
Cool.
I grind them down. I paint them. I sell them. Like, that's like my favorite thing in the world to do.
How did you learn how to do the CNC plasma table? Because that's like a whole skill in itself of doing all the designs. And is it CAD that you're using?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother set of skills that's really awesome. Tell me about that.
So I started in high school. We didn't use CAD in high school, but we used a program called Rhino. And it's not the same, but you get the same idea from it. And so I made them in high school, and I was like, this is cool, like, kind of going to be sad leaving this behind. And I came to college, and they're like, take this CAD class. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll take this class. I mean, I know it, but, like, it'll be fun. And I just started doing it, and the teachers were like, Charity, I'm so tired of literally cutting out all this stuff. We're just going to show you how to use the machine because I don't want to do it for you anymore. And I just learned.
That's great. So you have like access to everything you need down in the shop?
Yeah, you have to ask, but they normally do not say no to me. Or like anyone, like, as long as you're paying for it, like, if you're making a sign and you get the money, it goes to them besides like what you personally charge. Like, you have to cover material.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right on. A little while ago, you said coping a few times, like coping metal. What does that mean?
If you can imagine, you have like a U shape and a flat piece of metal going in, you're not going to be able to fit that in. Mm-hmm. So you have to like cut those edges to make it fit into the U groove.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just making things fit together better.
Right on. That's really cool. So what are you going to do after you get out of the program? Do you have any big dreams? Like, what's the ultimate goal?
So I don't have any specific place, but first I want to start like in a shop setting, get to know every single thing, like know my, like what I can do and what I can't. And then I think I want to go on the road, which makes, if you go on the road, you can make a lot more money than staying in a shop. Like I mentioned, wages that were like $24 coming out. Like if you go on the road, it could be 30, it could be 40. Like, it depends what company you go for. Or if you're yourself, you can charge your own prices. But it's a big thing about making your own reputation, like being reliable and all that kind of stuff. But I think the ultimate goal is to start my own business with mix between fabrication, pipe, and then making signs. Like, I think that's my ultimate goal.
That sounds like a really cool goal. And they both do. And I think I'm going to start on the traveling part, because that piqued my interest when you were talking about like higher wages for the road, because it reminded me of like travel nursing or like travel lab teching, where you get like a higher wage. And I don't know, I think that they usually pay for like housing and stuff. Do you know if that's the same with like welding companies?
So it depends how long you're going to stay there. You might live in a hotel and they pay for that, and they give you like $45 a day extra for like food or groceries or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, they bring their own like trailers,
Mm-hmm.
and they stay in their own place. And so that would be, they're paying for their rent for like where they park their trailer, and then on top they get extra for what they need.
That's awesome. Yeah, per diem. The entrepreneurship, though, is pretty awesome. How did you come up with this idea? Like, I like thinking about, like, the big daydream and how, like, what it is, how I'm going to make it happen. How did you come up with yours?
Well, it started with making signs. Like, I was like, I can make, you see signs on, like, the internet, and you're like, Facebook Marketplace are like $25 for this itty-bitty thing, and I'm like, that's probably like $2 worth of material. I could do this. Like, yeah, the table itself costs a lot of money, but you could pay that off in a year if you're committed. And like, the program costs money, but if I'm working for it, it's going to happen. I personally, I do good working with people, but I always have been like a leader and like a go-getter. Like, I don't like being held back. And so if I'm my own boss, I can be a leader and also have my own, like, home life. I could stay at home if I wanted to. I could be, like, sick as a dog and still get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of where it came from. It doesn't make as good money as going on the road, but it kind of sounds nice to be able to, like, stay at home, get stuff done, and also be in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like the freedom that entrepreneurship brings, and like the sounds of that. And I know you have to, like, there's a lot of extra work in like building a business, but there's something about that freedom that's like really intriguing. For sure. That's a great dream to have. So what is the hardest part of being a welding student so far?
This is going to sound very, like, everyone says it. I think it's just being in the man's world. Like, I've always been used to it. Like, don't get me wrong. I grew up with 3 older brothers, no sisters. Like, I've been used to being in a man's world my entire life. But it's a different dynamic. Like, you come into this school and, like, into this, and you're like, flip your switch. You cannot act like a girl. You can't, like, get upset about the smallest things, which I tend to do. Like, I am definitely more in my head about stuff. I'm a perfectionist. We see detail and we're like, this is not perfect. Like, what the heck? And guys are like, I'll get it next time. It's fine. It'll pass.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like that whole, like, switch over, don't be so hard on myself. And I think that's the hardest part, is because us as female, we're like this is how they told me to do it, this is how it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And especially going into a man's world, you're like, I need to be extra good because I'm going into the man's world.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that at all now. Like, now that I've been in there, like, you do not need to be extra good. You could literally be the worst photo out there, and they're still going to care about you. They're still going to help you. They're still going to do that. I think it was just the big, what I had in my head versus what it actually was. Like, everyone makes these people out like, I'm sure there is. Like, all the old timers out there, you go to a job, I'm sure you're going to get an old timer that, oh, you're a girl, you can't do anything. Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm like, they're not like that. They're completely opposite of what I expected.
That's really awesome. I'm really glad to hear you're having a good experience. But I have to agree, it's got to be like the thoughts is really intimidating of like going to be like, I have to be extra good, or like, will people see my value? But I think there's a benefit too to being like in the classroom, and we're all here to learn as well. I think though it does take a lot of courage to even take that step and like get into that classroom and like be part of the trades. But I mean, I think, you're like living proof that you just like go for it and it's going to work out.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Right on. Do you have any advice for, girls that are getting ready to go into your position?
Be bold. I was very shy when I came in. Let me just say they ripped into me. Like, I could take it, but if you don't know if you can take it, be the most bold you can be. Don't be cocky. Don't say you know everything, but be confident. Like, if someone's saying something and you know for a fact it's wrong, don't be like, you're wrong, but be, actually, I'm pretty sure it's this, and then they'll be like, oh, you're completely right. Like, I'm so sorry. And they'll grow respect for you. Like, I was super shy when I came in. I'm a very antisocial person, and this program has grown me because I'm around people all the time. But I was like, knowing it's wrong in my head. I would sit by one of my friends and like telling him like, this is wrong, like this is the answer. And he would always like speak up and be like, hey, actually I think it's this. And they're like, whoa, Jeb actually knows something. Like, this person actually knows something. Wow. And then they would give him all the respect. And he's like, actually, it was Charity. She just didn't want to say it. And they're like, Charity, come on, grow up. Come on. You're in college now. So I think it's just a big thing of being bold and not cocky, not like in someone's face, but if you know something, say it. They're not going to be mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like my best advice I could give you. Like, if you have questions, ask. Like, everyone here is super cool. If they don't know, they'll ask someone else. If they don't know, they'll ask the teacher. If the teacher doesn't know, they will find out. Like, everyone here is so amazing, and like, you can meet the best people of your life. And I was so scared of coming to college. I was like, I have gone to school with people pre-K to 12th grade. Like, I'm not going to be with anyone I know. And I got here and I was like, whoa, eye-opener. It's completely different. And all the teachers actually care about whether you make it in life or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. That's good, taking that step even though you're afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it's really paying off.
Yeah. I mean, there's still sometimes I get nervous, like interviewing for a job. Like, I'm still like, am I good enough for this? And I always have that backup on here. Like, first year I got certifications, and our teachers pushed, like, you at least have to get 2 certifications. You at least have to do something. Like, they pushed for it, and that gave me confidence. And so nowadays, like, I'm looking for a job. Like, after school, I'm like, am I really good enough to do these welding tests? And I'll like talk to my friends or teacher about it, and they're like, Charity, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna pass the welding test, and you going into the job, you're gonna be fine. There's always encouragement. They're never like, no, you suck. Like, don't do this. Like, it's always a positive thing. Even if they criticize you, like my night class teacher, I could not weld to save my life. Like, I know how to weld, but I couldn't, and I was getting super frustrated. He goes, Charity, this does not look good at all, but I know you can weld. Like, I know you can weld, and I know you're beating yourself up way too hard right now. Like, go back and go do plate, like, bore and pipe. Like, it's a lot harder. I haven't welded for, like, 4 weeks right now, 5 weeks, because I had nose surgery and I couldn't weld. And I came back and I was like, what in the world? And he goes, go weld on plate. Do, like, an hour of welding on plate, and then you're going to realize, okay, I don't completely not know how to weld. I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
And they're very supportive, and then you'll, like, do it, and they'll, like, give you a high five, like, celebrate with you. And then, of course, like, you can do better. Push you a little harder.
Yeah. But that always feels good, that high five after.
Yeah.
That's really great advice, I think, for, like, anyone in any skill. If it's feeling hard, like, when you know how to do something, like, just shake it off. Like, go take a walk, take a lap, and then come back, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, especially in welding. It's a very mental thing. Like, you have to be fully focused on it. And so when you get frustrated if you let the outside, everything around you on the outside come in, you're not going to be able to weld. And if you let being mad at your weld, you're just going to be more frustrated, and it's not going to go well. So first years, I helped with them a little bit, and I was like one of the females in the class. She's like, I don't know what's going on. I've tried this like 4 different times, and I could see she's frustrated. I was like, go take a walk. Go get coffee. Go get food. And she's like, but I'm in class. I was like, they're not going to care. Like, they understand. I mean, you can't do that every single day, obviously, but if you're like having one of those days, you don't miss class, but you're like can't weld, you're getting so frustrated, they're not going to care if you walk to the cafe and go get food, get something in your system, go hang out with a friend for like an hour, go just walk around. Like, they're not going to care. Because it's going to make you better, because you're going to be relaxed again, and you'll come back, and 95% of the time, you weld 10 times better than when you left.
Totally. That's, like, good, like, building skills to, like, deal with your emotions and self-regulation, which is, I mean, it's good for you, but it's also good for your employer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, like, it's also, I feel like, frustrating a lot for girls, because we feel like we need to be perfect. Like, we can't start something unless we already know how to do it. We can't, it's hard. We don't want to apply for the job because, like, well, what if I'm not, like, the best metal coper?
Yeah.
Or, or, like, what if I'm not the best graphic designer? And then it's, like, we're just letting opportunities pass us by. Like, we're all learning. Like, people are going to know by, like, you just getting out of school or looking at your resume that, learning has to happen. And everyone keeps learning, so we need to just take some chances.
And the best thing about, like, especially welding right now, it's such a high demand. People are looking for welders, but they're also looking for welders they can train to their liking.
Yes.
Like, I was always so worried, like, I'm going to get in, they're going to be looking for this old-timer that knows all this stuff, and I started looking at jobs and I was like, oh, you could be straight out of high school. Like, they're looking to train. And I'm like, that's cool. And, like, some of the, like, businesses are like, we'll pay for your schooling. Like, you finish school, we'll pay it all back to you.
100%. Yeah. Well, there's such a need in the trades right now that people are like, if I can get someone that is trainable to do my job how I want them to do it, and, all I have to do is, like, pay them to, like, go to school or, make them an offer and get someone that's, like, locked in for a handful of years, like, that's a really good investment. And so, I don't know, I feel like people are, like, skipping over the trade sometimes because they're like, oh, well, it's not like regular college, or, like, I don't want to get dirty, but it's like, bro, you're going to make 6 figures in a few years.
Yeah. And I think a big thing is, I see nowadays, like, transgenders that, like, I don't want to go into welding. That's like a bunch of rednecks and Republicans. Like, they're going to be so rude. But honestly, everyone is so respectful. Like, they might not agree with them, but they don't make that public. They're like, they'll talk to them, they'll have a conversation, they'll laugh with them. Everyone is so respectful about it, and you just don't normally get that. Like, you think blue collar, you think so completely opposite. You think rude, you think judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so not that way. I am definitely, like, in the middle of it. And I look out and I see these people, like, it's amazing. Like, you can be who you want to be, and they're not going to do anything. Like, it's a very safe space, especially at LB.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to see all kinds of people, like, races and different genders and literally everything. The options are endless, and I'm so sorry if I get any of this terminology wrong, but, like, they are all so respectful, and, like, what I would say to, like, anyone that's afraid of that kind of stuff is don't be. Like, no one's going to be mean to you here. And I can't say anything for, like, Lane or Shemeketa.
Mm-hmm.
But at Linn-Benton, no one's going to be mean. Like, we're all here to learn. We're all here to support each other. We all want each other to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy to, like, think, oh, I can't do this because this is the work I'm going into. And I don't know what it's like in the real world, but it's not what it used to be.
Right on. Yeah, the old heads kind of gave it a bad name that's kind of carrying over, but it's a much more diverse and welcoming space now.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. I hope that some people out there that were having those thoughts can hear this and know that they could pursue this dream of theirs or pursue this career, and it's going to be a safe and welcoming place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that you shared that.
Yeah, I'd recommend welding to anyone. I might be a little biased, but I would recommend it. It's fun, and you learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the old-timers, every old-timer I've ever talked to, they're like, I learn something new every day. And I've been doing this for, like, 40 years. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, like, you guys teach us stuff, and we teach you stuff. Like, when we went to school for this, if we went to school for it at all, they didn't teach us this. And then, like, we'll, like, tell them what we learned in school, and they're like, that's such a smart way to do it. Like, I'm going to do that from now on. So you're always learning something, and I like that about it, because it's not you're doing one thing over and over and over again.
That's so great. I'm so stoked to hear about your experience and how the industry is changing, and it all sounds really great. And I want to just thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and joining us as our last guest for season 4. So I'm really stoked to be ending with you, and it's been a pleasure.
I'm so glad you asked. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Closing the Gap. If you like this show, subscribe on Spotify. You can also find us on Instagram at MV-STEM-CTE, on Twitter at Mid-Valley STEM, and online at midvalleystem.org. Until next time, keep progressing.